Boldwood presents The Twin, written by Amanda Brookfield and read by Emma Powell. Before, 1976. Through the bars of my cot, I see her across the room. She is brushing her long red hair. Her eyes are closed, and she's turning her head this way and that, sweeping the brush down. Again. When her eyes flick open, so blue and startled, seeing me, her face lights up. She presses a finger to her mouth and points with the hairbrush at the cot alongside mine. I do not look where she points. I keep my gaze on her. My mother, firing out love like a sunbeam. Rob and I sit in a green bath, slapping the water with our palms to make the foam fly. On a stool beside us, the big towel over her knees, our mother leans back against the wall, watching with dreamy eyes, blinking slowly as she smiles. Her cheekbones are pebbles trying to push out of her face, and her skin is mottled white, like the ceiling. Gathered back off her face, her hair bursts out of a clip on the crown of her head, twisting and tumbling over her shoulders. I splash harder and harder. I want her to laugh. I want her to move. I'm better at it than Rob, who gets water in his eyes and starts to cry. She comes to life then, plucking first him, then me out of the bath, folding us up in the towel, blowing funny noises into our necks until we giggle. 2022. Chapter 1. Catherine. At the last moment, I kick off my flats and swap the staid dark trouser suit for a short black dress. Full of flattering lycra, it hugs my bust and hips, showing I still have a waistline unlike Joanne. I stop myself. To want to get one over on her on such a day. What sort of monster am I? I start to peel the dress off, but then let it fall. I'm digging deep just to make it out of the house. And what are clothes anyway but camouflage, something to hide inside? I sway as Rob shimmers at the back of my mind, model handsome. Whether in tatty shorts and flip-flops or the close-fitting blue suit that, back in the day, I used to tease him made him look like a wannabe film star, and he'd laugh in that easy way that showed me we still had our connection, deep down, beneath all the other stuff. The dress is for parties, not funerals. It needs proper shoes. I pluck out my smartest black heels from the pit of the wardrobe, spitting on them and rubbing with a tissue to heighten the shine. My bare feet, hot from sorrow and the day's mounting heat, fight the tight black patent leather. Squeezed inside, my pinched toes throb, but to be uncomfortable feels right somehow. A reminder I should feel lucky to be alive. Or something. A wisp of eyeliner, a dab of colour on the mouth. Tissues. I pluck a fistful from the box on my dressing table and shove them into my handbag, and then gaze at my reflection in the full-length mirror pinned to the inside of the wardrobe door. I see a good-for-her-age 47-year-old with long, wavy auburn hair and big, scared blue eyes, her slim legs looking unsteady in towering heels. I see a small person trying to look taller, a scared person trying to appear brave. I can sense Al waiting downstairs, twiddling the car and house keys, checking his phone. I make it out onto the landing and then have to pause to breathe. Air in, air out. Things that should happen automatically. My ankles are jelly. Below me at the bottom of the stairs, the front door is wide open, framing Al on the drive beside the car, a black hulk against the backdrop of fierce blue August sky. As I reach the hall, he steps back into the house. Okay. He bends to brush his lips against my head, closing his hand round my elbow. Such mighty hands, big as garden forks, yet his schematics spiral from them like gossamer webs, filling the thick white pages of his work pads. I'm fine. Okay. He releases my arm. The dogs? Already in the kitchen. I nod. longing suddenly to feel the warm bodies of Belle and Bobby, our two big mutts, bouncing under my palms, celebrating every encounter as dogs do, as if they know without telling that each good moment needs cherishing, just in case it turns out to be the last. But Al will have settled them with treats and closed the door, and it would be too cruel to raise and dash their doggy hopes. Left free to roam, they'd be upstairs in seconds, to sprawl and snore on our bed. She'll be asking for a cup of tea next. Al had laughed, catching Belle, a gift to me in a cardboard box when we made the move to Dorset 10 years ago, with her huge head actually on one of the pillows, making sure to take a pic before booting her off. Is Tamsin coming? She said she'd try. I sound like I believe she might, when I have already steeled myself for the opposite. Tamsin is with Jules in Dublin, enjoying new love and a well-earned treat of 2 weeks off. Oldest friend as well as work partner, I know how much she deserves the break, the extent of the ask. And anything from the dreaded Oliver? No, thank God. Jesus, Hal, I don't know what I was even thinking, including him in the notification email. Maybe you wanted to give him a jolt? Al says mildly. Maybe? A jolt, yes, that could be it. I half relish the distraction of having to think about the sly, quiet half-sibling I haven't seen for 30 years. Nowadays, according to the smug Christmas e-greetings that started arriving out of the blue a few years ago, running some sort of high-stakes investment company in New York with a child in tow as well as a wife. Oliver, Faith and Amelia wish you happy holidays. If the paragraph of news is especially nauseating, I read it out so Al can share the laugh before I delete it. Faith has found a new channel for her creative spirit through enrollment in an art class. Picasso, watch out! Amelia is loving her violin and chess club. Oliver is heading up City Tech's global outreach program and has been learning how to make his own sourdough starter. While Al locks up, I crouch down and watch a fat bee bobbing between the browning lavender in the tub by our front door. I snap off a few sprigs for myself. Lavender means something, doesn't it? Remembrance, serenity, something. In the car, the seat burns the back of my thighs through the thin black dress. I've been clasping the lavender sprigs too hard, turning them to dusty shreds. Their aroma, faint and sweet, drifts up from my lap. Al fiddles with the car sat-nav, though we know the way to Salisbury well enough. From there it is the ring road and then 10 minutes north. It's saying an hour and 10. Maybe Joanne will turn me away. Come on now, Cath, not today. She's asked you to do a reading, for goodness sake. John Donne. Death thou shalt die, according to its last line. Really? The poem has been chosen by my sister-in-law, like everything else. The task of standing in front of everyone, declaiming lines of preachy poetry I do not believe, sits in my head, an impossible mountain to climb. I try to reach for Rob in my mind, but only get him in pieces, as he used to be. His smile, the blue eyes much more translucent than mine, the floppy copper gold hair, the mildness of his manner and a voice so gentle and low-timbred that you could only ascertain the shades in his mood by knowing him well and listening hard. During the rare get-togethers of the last decade, I've never seen Joanne doing that. She has her own agenda, my sister-in-law, and I'm not part of it. The road running beside our house is busy with traffic going to and from the Dorset coast. Al edges out of our narrow drive, hunching over the steering wheel to wait for a gap he can swing into. He's breathing heavily in the way large men do. His grey shirt is already damp and creased across his back, rucking badly where it's coming untucked from his dark, smart trousers. Beside me, a doughty sparrow perches in the privet hedge bordering the drive, only just visible within the thicket, parched, brittle brown like so much else after the recent late summer heatwave. She'll be in the first seat in the front pew, no doubt, with her parents and the girls. Of course she will, Cath. As shall we be, I'm sure, on the other side. I can hear the exasperation in his voice. There will be 2 sets of pews, and he was her husband. Yes, and he was my brother, and I can't get my mouth round the next word. and Al, who knows it anyway and who has heard it all and much more, before 1,000,000 times, sighs heavily, shaking his head. As we join the road, I keep my gaze on my window, filling now with the blur of yellow-brown lawns and stubbly fields. I know I'm talking nonsense about pews and so much else. All I can think is how many ways there are of losing someone, how being dead or alive can have nothing to do with it. It will be all right, okay? Al pats my leg. Okay, I say, because I love him. And in this one thing he is powerless, and I don't want him to feel any worse about that than he already does. This day has been coming, I knew that much, despite the old battle of feeling I was being kept at bay. Even towards the end. But I thought there would be more time. You always think there will be more time. Before, 1977 to 79. Our father, gruff and businesslike in his shiny two-piece suit, starts doing our breakfast. 2 bowls of Frosties and toast with golden syrup. Not enough butter and not enough syrup across the 2 brittle, 2 blackened squares. The hand working the knife is always full of haste because he's late for his job at the bank and it's our fault. Our mother appears in her dressing gown to give him a goodbye kiss at the door, then strokes our heads as she gently steers us back to the sofa where she will doze while we play and watch TV. One day, she stays in bed instead of on the sofa, and a friend we don't know called Diane comes by. She has a twangy accent because she's American and red lipstick circling big teeth and an even bigger smile. But her large, slightly bulbous green eyes make us wary, as do the thick, brightly coloured elasticated headbands stapling her wispy, light brown hair to her narrow head. She takes us to the swings by the supermarket and sits on the bench as we play, glancing occasionally over the top of the knitting that accompanies her everywhere in a faded, saggy blue velvet bag. Scarves, jumpers, hats, she says, when we ask about the lumpy, growing chunks of wool dangling off fat needles, all destined for charity, because doing good in this world is the Lord's command. Indoors, Diane's favourite thing, apart from knitting, is for us to be quiet, even when we're playing tag or decking ourselves in the big floppy hats, shoes and chunky necklaces from the dressing-up box, because it is only without noise or disturbance of any kind, she warns over and over, her needles clacking like loose teeth, that our mother will get better from her operation. Aged 4, this fills us with conflictions because of how often we fail. For even when we think we are quiet, it turns out that we're not. Laughter is loud. Being happy is loud. Being sad is even louder. Along the corridor, our mother shakes a small metal handbell if she needs something, like a cup of tea or a peeled orange, or us. At the first hint of its tinkle, Rob and I elbow and barrel our way into the room for pirate games on the bed, or stories, or answering her questions about our day. We try to settle and attend. Most of all, we like to moan about Diane, how we hate her lumpy meat pies and the way she tells us what to do. But our mother says Diane is a good person from church who has her own troubles and who is a long way from home just doing her best. Which is all anyone can do, she adds, kissing the tops of our heads. It won't be for long, she promises, because the doctors have taken the badness out and soon everything will go back to normal, just the 4 of us, like before. Rob and I start proper school, a long walk from home, round the edge of the playground, through the shopping centre and past the garage. Our father takes us on his way to work, his hands enveloping ours like 2 big gloves, his long strides meaning we have to trot to keep up. We have a teacher called Miss Price who says twins must be separated for their own good. But Rob cries when we're directed to tables in different rows, causing titters round the classroom. In the playground, beefy Brendan Slater with his fleshy mouth and missing front teeth starts following Rob everywhere, chanting, "Cry baby carrot boy." One day, I kick Brendan in the shins and he collapses with screams that turn into smirks once they grow loud enough to summon Miss Price. I'm made to say sorry. To Brendan, to Miss Price, to the head, and to my father, for my nastiness and the shame I have caused. He promises not to speak of it to our mother, because of how it would upset her. But he tells Diane. "Sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you," she declares, after cornering me alone to deliver her own long scolding. She's wrong, I explain, because being called Crybaby Carrot Boy definitely did hurt Rob. From nowhere, her hand flies out and lands across my cheek. "I'm insolent," she hisses, the bulging eyes burning. "I must learn not to answer back." My face throbs, but I do not cry. She wants me to, I can tell, and it makes me strong. Chapter 2. Catherine. The Salisbury Ring Road is solid. Al turns up the aircon and drums his fingers impatiently on the steering wheel. He has an aversion to being late, from countless childhood mortifications generated by the poor timekeeping of his parents. I prefer punctuality too, but also have no desire to arrive at the funeral of my 47-year-old twin brother. Getting stuck in traffic would offer a crude solution to that at least. "The ring road needs a ring road," I offer, because we've come to a halt again and I can feel the tension pulsing out of Al's beautiful heart. He manages a dry chuckle. I close my eyes, feeling their grittiness from too much crying and not enough sleep. What was it like, Rob? To die? I wonder, biting my lips so hard that I taste a little blood. "It clears by the roundabout," Al reports. 20 minutes, but at least that means we'll still be in time. "Right. Got your words?" "Yep." I hug my bag, in which the famous 14 lines sit waiting for me, treble-spaced and font size 16 on a folded A4 page. "After we get back, I might do the afternoon walk alone, if that's okay." "Whatever you need, love, whatever you need." "Thanks, Al." I want to cry because he's so kind. Even with the stress of the traffic, he has a wisdom about him, a stillness, which I picked up on the first time we met, and which made me agree to a second date even though he was too old and not my type, with his lumbering body and almost bald head. His wife, Sandy, had been gone for over 2 years by then, taking their toddler son, Ryan, with her, in order to make a new life with a man called Mark, not only a fellow architect, but Al's erstwhile best friend. It turned out the pair of them had had a thing for ages, even before the wedding, Al suspected, despite Sandy's denials. He had had to fight for a paternity test and then for decent shared custody rights, even after the test had confirmed that Ryan was his. But the net result of all the pain, Al had told me in his simple, steady way on our second date, was learning, properly, how to let the distress go, how to accept the currents of the universe instead of fighting them. He was building a good relationship with Ryan, he said, whom he would have loved even if he hadn't been his own, because love was about more than gene pools, wasn't it? His big brown eyes had bored into mine across the sticky wine bar table, and I'd had to look away because of how my stomach was flipping. Before I knew it, some of my own 26 years of baggage came tumbling out, about the bad early days and still living with Rob, how we looked out for each other. I even told him about the thing with Jed Levy, the married university lecturer, which had only recently ended, 5 years on from my graduation. It had gone on so long precisely because of my not loving him, I explained, because that made it emotionally undemanding and ruled out the possibility of hurt, all of which Al had seemed immediately to understand. "I'd certainly like to meet this twin brother of yours," he said when we parted, "if and when you're both ready." Which might be never, I had shot back, suddenly feeling the need to put the brakes on, because it was, after all, only an online dating site that had got us together, and the man could be an axe murderer for all I knew. That goes without saying. Al had smiled his vast smile, unperturbed. I like you, Cath. Wherever this goes, it's all good. It could be a wedding, I think, when at last we've parked on a solid mud hump of a verge a good 100 yards beyond the small country church and trekked back, me already bitterly regretting my show-off heels, to the wooden entrance gate decked with a garland of white roses. A narrow tarmac path leads up between the headstones towards the church entrance, where Joanne is waiting to greet arrivals, her face masked by a black dotted gauze veil. You're supposed to say the hellos afterwards, aren't you? I hissed to Al as we joined the tail end of the queue of mourners, not one of whom I recognise. He shrugs, running a finger round the inside of his shirt collar in a vain bid to cool his neck. I glance again at my sister-in-law, whose imposing, full-figured frame is elegantly covered by a loose black pyramid of a dress, behind which Laura and Stephanie, the 8 and 10-year-old nieces whom I wish I knew better, peep like mice. They have the same dark hair as their mother and have grown leggier since I last saw them. 2 peas from the same pod. A fact which Joanne likes to emphasise by dressing them in identical clothes. Today it is tight black cotton dresses with lace trim round the necklines and narrow polished black shoes, all of which I would tug off and fling into the shrubbery if I could. I deserve to suffer to look smart, but surely not these dear little girls, on this airless day, with the heat pumping down from above and up through the ground, and with their stricken hearts. Being young and sad, it can be complicated, confusing. That Herculean shift from having a sick parent to a dead one. As we shuffle nearer, the cluster of well-wishers ahead of us slowly thinning out, I manage to catch the eye of Laura, the 8-year-old. I see a flicker of hesitation pass through her expression before she gives me a tentative wave. I wave back a little madly, my throat swelling both for her and because of the glimpse of Rob in the cupid's bow of her small, half-smiling mouth. Catherine? I turn at the voice, which comes from a tall, slim man in a light grey suit striding up the path, a yellow silk tie flapping against a crisp white shirt. The smart cut of the suit, the faint tan of his skin, and the way his collar-length light brown hair has been brushed back off his face suggest the chicness of serious wealth. Oliver. I have to force the word from my throat while my brain performs a swift, incredulous recalibration of the spoilt, telltale 12-year-old shrimp of a half-sibling Rob and I waved out of our lives 3 decades ago. A steady job in our step-grandfather's real estate company in Seattle, free accommodation in the family home prior to finding their own place. It was too good an opportunity to pass up, our father had explained, by way of justification for the move. After all the years of his stop-start jobs in the back rooms of high street banks, the rows with our stepmother over money, it certainly made sense. Just 18 and having started courses at the London Poly and Bedford College, Rob doing business studies and me history, my brother and I had quickly gathered that there was no question of us getting on the plane with them. There'd be visits soon enough, our father explained, along with regular financial support. In the meantime, we had 3 months' rent to run on the Wandsworth estate flat, plus our university grants and bar jobs to keep us afloat. It was Al, on hearing this piece of my history, who first used the word abandonment. Although all Rob and I had felt at the time was excitement. Freedom from castigating adults, independence, money, visits to America. We couldn't wait for the goodbyes, and would probably have felt the same, for a while anyway, even had we known they were to be our last. It took a few months for the aloneness, the difficulties, to set in. I'm sorry for your loss, Catherine. The strength of the American accent is almost as much of a shock as the fact of his presence. As I reach out, an automaton, to accept the smooth, slender, outstretched hand, it is Rob's childhood voice, full of our shared loathing and mockery, that erupts in my head. baby Oliver, telltale, wimp. Because yes, words can hurt. Oliver's hand encases my fingers. The pale green eyes that meet mine bulge a little, as they always did, just like his mother's. I jerk free with an involuntary gasp that's half a sob. "It was good of you to come," says Al, wading in. "I'm Alistair Boland, Cath's partner." "Nice to meet you, Alistair. I'm on a Europe trip for work, so I figured I could get here in order to offer my condolences in person." Oliver smiles as they shake hands, clasping Al's forearm with his other hand as if they're old pals, before returning his attention to me. "I was so sorry to hear Robert had passed, Catherine. Please accept my—" "He hasn't passed," I hissed before I can stop myself. "He has died." "Okay, sure. I didn't mean to. Look, I'm real sorry, okay? I had no notion he was sick." "No, you didn't," I mutter, cursing again both my own moment of madness in copying the man into my Rob has died email and whatever online sleuth work had got me into his festive hit list. Lost the battle with cancer was all I had said before the brief funeral details, not up to sharing the cruel facts. The small freckle lurking on the underside of his left calf, a miniature time bomb, ticking silent and unseen. The lockdowns contributing to the too late diagnosis. "So maybe get yours checked, okay, sis?" Rob had advised in his light way on one of the rare occasions my sister-in-law had sanctioned an actual visit. It had been just after a second round of chemo, when he was wiped out, but with hopes high. He'd pulled his mask down to talk and made a comical to-do of hoiking up his left leg to show off the scarred pothole where the mole had been. Oliver flaps his yellow silk tie. "I hope bringing some colour today was okay." "I don't know why you're here, Oliver," I snap, a loose cannon now, despite knowing it is neither the place nor the time. "I don't know why you've come. I wish you hadn't. The right to mourn someone has to be earned." "Cath, come on now," Al growls, touching my elbow. I allow him to repel me away, because all at once we're at the head of the greeting queue. "Cath?" Joanne's expression behind the black dots is inscrutable. She doesn't hug me, keeping an arm round each of the girls, who squirm, dropping their gazes to their hateful footwear. Their mother's mouth, just visible below the hem of her veil, looks swollen and chewed. "Joanne?" For all the awfulness, the awkwardness of not being liked, compassion pierces me. Al was right to call me out. The woman has lost her husband. She has become a single mother to 2 young girls. She's devastated. The fact that I've endured a decade of being at the mercy of her gatekeeping, even, dear God, with only weeks to go, none of that should matter now or ever again. "I'm sorry for your loss," I splutter, fighting my own tears, aware that I've summoned Oliver's opening platitude to my aid. "Thank you, Cath, and I for yours. I'm so glad that you agreed to do the done reading. Rob would be too. It was on his shortlist." "Shortlist? Why didn't I know about that?" Al's arm arrives across my shoulders. He bends towards Joanne to plant a half kiss on the veil where it hangs over her cheek. "We'll see you afterwards," he says, gently steering me into the church like some carer dealing with a difficult charge. Before 1981. We are sent to the Isle of Wight to spend the summer with Granny Jean, who we've heard of but never met. Our father takes us on the ferry, where we cling to the railings, shrieking at the beat of the wind and the noisy heave of the sea, too lost to the adventure of the moment to worry that we are soon to be left. "All right, Ian?" Granny Jean, waiting on the quayside beside a rusty red bubble car, tightens the knot of the purple headscarf, doing a poor job of reining in her straggly white hair. Despite the July warmth, she's dressed for winter in a padded, mud-coloured coat that stops halfway down short, wide legs encased in thick beige tights. We have no idea that we're witnessing a seismic family rapprochement. Our mother's German personality It'd have been marrying the enemy in Granny Jean's eyes, having had to raise her only son alone and in penury because of the war. Yes, you too, I hope, Mother. Mustn't complain. Thanks for this. We need a break. They can be a bit of a handful, and with Greta so under the weather. I'm truly sorry she's not well, Ian. Rob and I, hanging on to our father's arms now, exchange looks. There have been no pirate games in recent days, only summonings for holding and stories. Rob starts to cry as our small, bulging, shared blue suitcase is stowed in the boot and we are herded onto the back seat of the little car. Be good now, you two, our father instructs, having planted a kiss on each of our heads and putting his face in the frame of the open front passenger window once Granny Jean is behind the wheel. His dark eyes are glassy. I'll see you soon. In 6 weeks, Granny Jean growls. He stands erect on the pavement as we drive away, one hand held up in a farewell salute. In the distance behind him, the ferry that will carry him back across the water hoots its approach. There now, says Granny Jean as Rob's tears become convulsions, while I swallow mine down, feeling the heat of his misery and the need to counter it. I've got someone I want you two chickadees to help me look after. Small and away from his mum, just like you. She reaches into a basket in the footwell of the front passenger seat, causing the car to swerve so violently that Rob and I fall against each other, and holds up a small, squeaking, wiry-haired brown dog. Say hello to Pip, she cries, making the car rock again as she turns to deposit the animal into our laps. We both gasp. Rob forgets to cry. We've never met a dog up close before, let alone a puppy. If he nips, give him a rap on the nose, Granny Jean shouts as the puppy clambers and wriggles under our stroking. His teeth are sharp as tacks, and this is in case he piddles. She reaches again into the basket and lobs a rag of a towel over her shoulder. When the puppy suddenly falls asleep in the chink of space between us, Rob and I hardly dare breathe. The car roars on, careering round the bends of a winding road that hugs the ups and downs of the coast. Spread out alongside it, as far as we can see, is the sea, transformed from the choppy grey stuff that the ferry ploughed through into a vast, flat, glittering magic carpet, its glare blinding in the July afternoon sun. Granny Jean points out her cottage long before we reach it, perched alone, a white stone dropped from the skies, on the green spread of its own cliff top. Hold hands, barks Granny Jean, as we stand on the station concourse 6 weeks later, surrounded by whistles and screeches and people. She's in charge of the blue suitcase, which has slowed our progress on and off the train. He said he'd be here. She looks about her, and we can sense her unease. Central London is closer to our world, but she's far away from hers. She looks tinier and more ancient among the crowds, with a towering ceiling overhead, pigeons swooping between its dirty panes. Rob and I pull on each other's hands, swinging and half-hopping on the spot, trying to stay in charge of our excited bodies, maddened already by Granny Jean's doubt and fluster. We stay right here, she says, as if commanding herself for once, hoisting her big handbag higher onto her shoulder. Under the clock, that's what he said. She gestures upwards, directing our attention to 4 clock faces pointing in different directions. Now stop fidgeting, the pair of you. We try. We know Granny Jean hates fidgeting, just as we now know that the blue worms in her skin, kept in check by the thick tights, are called varicose veins, and that a tin containing biscuits with faded birds on it can be reached by standing on the wobbly kitchen table, preferably with me leading operations, being bolder and a little bit taller. Indeed, after 6 weeks, we are brimming with insider knowledge about life in the little hilltop house. How our grandmother likes to fall asleep in the big chair by the fireplace and then wake up and pretend it never happened. How she sips honey-coloured liquid from a big glass after her supper and snores so loudly in her bed that we can hear it from our bunk beds along the passageway, as we lie talking, not sleeping. We've learnt, too, to lick our lips and rub our stomachs in anticipation of meals, especially if it's a Sunday roast, or shepherd's pie, or toad in the hole, or apple crumble, or any of her homemade ice creams, breads, cakes and jams, asking for seconds and thirds if we dare. The effects are plain to see, in our fuller faces and the too tight buttons and too short sleeves and hems of our clothes. We've spent more time outside than in, always with Pip tumbling at our heels. We can swim, though Rob is still happier with armbands, and we have tanned, freckled faces and bodies, apart from the comically clear, protected white shapes of our swimming costumes. There's less orange in our hair and more gold. Our fringes are zigzags, and we have sticky-out clumps round our ears from Granny Jean's efforts with her big kitchen scissors. We have acquired toothless smiles like Brendan Slater, and have 2 precious sixpences each to show for it. The entire wall of 6 weeks, all 42 days of it, has crumbled with us barely noticing. We feel altered, older, full of tales to tell, our excitement about going home marred only by the wrench of having had to part from Pip. But we're going to ask our parents for a puppy, we have decided, encouraged by Granny Jean, who says a dog always improves a human. Thanks to the station crowds, it is the afternoon rush hour, Granny Jean grumbles. Our father manages to arrive at our sides without any of us observing his approach. He has a moustache, a thick black line flecked with grey, which scrapes my cheek as he kisses me, momentarily puncturing my joy because of not being part of the father I've known and kept safe inside my head. "Children, Mother, how nice to see you all." He pulls us to him, and for a moment we bury our faces in his trousers, drinking in the forgotten but instantly familiar scent of home. But there is so much to tell, and soon we are jumping up at him, shouting over each other about Pip chasing crabs and being able to swim and visiting a castle and going out in a boat with a fisherman. When none of it seems to impress quite as we had imagined, we grow shriller. He tells us to calm down and to say a big thank you to Granny Jean, who has to catch her train back home. "Thank you, Mother," he says, after we've chimed our "Thank you, Granny Jean" in unison. He holds out his hand, but she pushes past it, locking her stout arms round his waist and staying there even though she has knocked the blue suitcase flying. Her head only comes up to his ribs, but on she clings, pressing the side of her face against him, her eyes tight shut and leaking tears. "They're good children, Ian. You can send them any time." Rob and I make pop-eyed faces at each other. To know we shall see Pip again is good, but for now our focus is home. "Thank you, Mother. That is kind. I shall almost certainly take you up on it." Our father has to unhook her arms from around his waist. "We had a fine time, didn't we, my lambs?" Granny Jean says, dabbing at the wet corners of her eyes with one of the big hankies that has AR stitched into the corner, while our father picks up the suitcase. The AR is another thing we know about, the letter standing for Alfred Reynolds, the grandfather whose airplane got shot down and crashed into the sea during the war. "Come here then, both of you. Be good and brave for your father, won't you, my chucks?" We mumble assent, submitting somewhat warily to a bosomy embrace that bears no resemblance to the hair ruffles and head pats with which we are familiar. "If your father says you can come again, you shall," she declares in a thick voice, pushing us back towards him suddenly before stomping off into the early evening crowds. On the outward journey, we had come by tube and bus, but it is in a taxi that we set off for home. Waiting in the queue outside the station, our father gives us a packet of refreshers to share and listens better to our chatter, saying well done about swimming and for being good, but that our Ackland Court flat is much too small for a dog. "Next summer you can go again and see more of Pip," he promises, "if Granny Jean doesn't change her mind." He waits until we are sitting on either side of him in the black taxi, moving slowly past a towering brown wall of blocked-in arches, before clearing his throat and saying that while we were away, our mother got very ill indeed because the bad lump in her tummy came back. "So ill that there was nothing more the doctors could do. She didn't want you to stop having your lovely holiday. She said she loved you both." "But when will we see her?" Robert asks, speaking first for once, but only because he is too dumb to understand. Our father swivels his head to the taxi window, twisting his mouth into funny lines. I'm afraid you won't see her, Robbie. Mummy got so sick that she died. It is very sad, but she is with God in heaven now, where we shall see her again one day. For now, we must all be brave. But when? Rob repeats, swinging his legs so hard that his heels thump against the underneath of the taxi seat. I want to see Mummy now. Through my window, I keep my eyes fixed on the tall brown arches which are bricked in and therefore stupid. Why have an arch you can't walk through? She's dead, Rob, I shout through my terror. That means we won't see her again ever. Rob begins to howl, and our father pulls him onto his lap and me into the crook of his arm. I don't cry. I stare up at my father's moustache, part of this new, unbearable world, hating it, blaming it. I want Mummy, Rob bellows over and over for both of us. Our father presses us so hard against him that it hurts. I do too, Robbie. But we shall manage, with God's will, and with Diane, who has kindly agreed to carry on helping. She was a good friend to your mother and has come through her own difficulties. His voice cracks. Mummy was very happy that you two were having such a nice time. Soon we can visit where she's been buried and give her some flowers. Remember, she's in heaven and looking down on us all right this minute, not wanting you and Cath to be sad. From the crook of his arm, I stare up at the dingy brown ceiling of the cab, wondering how anyone could see through it, even from heaven. When the taxi pulls up outside our block, our father gets out first, with the case, and then tells us to stand still while he pays the driver. He fumbles with his wallet, and we stay near him, Rob still sobbing, streams of slime dangling from his nostrils. Out of the corner of my eye, I catch a glimpse of a shadow of a person behind the net curtains in our front room, and my heart explodes. Mummy, she's not dead after all. Everything will be as it was, just like she said. But when the door opens, it is Diane who emerges, in a purple dress and the faded yellow apron that lives on the hook on the back of our kitchen door. Her thin hair has been pinned off her forehead with a bright green hairband, and her narrow face is lit up with the reddened lips which he is so eager to press against our cheeks. She kisses our father first, though, right on his mouth. Chapter 3. Catherine. What exactly made you do it, Cath? I mean, it sounds like quite a... Tamsin clears her throat. Quite a thing to have done. We've hugged and talked at length about Rob and the service, and she is now peering over the rim of her laptop, her dark blue, thick-lashed eyes full of the kindness that comes as naturally to her as breathing. Not a hellraiser like me. Not a ranting, judgmental mourner who, at the wake following her twin brother's funeral and cremation, managed, somehow, to tip a glass of wine over his widow. White wine, just half a glass, a small glass, and leaving only an inky patch on the black dress, but still. I'm not sure how, or whether I actually meant to. I've buried my face in my hands behind the shield of my own laptop. The glass, it just sort of slipped forwards. I know Tam has been holding back on quizzing me, not wanting to pile pressure onto my still fragile state. 10 days on, and at my insistence, we are in my kitchen, touching base as we always do, to go through upcoming events and take stock of our workload, a steady amount, what with the continuing post-pandemic bounce back and the recent spell of Mediterranean weather. Routine, rhythm, getting back to normal. I'm certain it's the tonic I need. Tamsin is properly returned from Ireland, and Jules, a 2-week idyll broken only by the monumental feat of flying to and from England in order to attend the funeral, arriving late because of traffic, and having to leap straight back into her hire car after the committal at the crematorium in order to perform the whole rigmarole of the journey in reverse. My first inkling of this heroic effort had been catching sight of her behind a pillar at the back of the small, already full church as I stepped down from the podium, The printout of Dunn's celebrated 14 lines crumpled and damp in my hands, my throat still burning from the choking effort of having to read them aloud. To have such a friend, prepared to undertake such a journey despite being on a precious break with the newly discovered love of her life, had made all the half-held-in tears flow, so much so that I froze, as everything, Tam's blue dress, the faces of the congregation, the small stained glass windows, brilliant with sunshine, turned to porridge, until Al was there, leading me back to the pew. Oh God, Tam. I part my fingers to meet her gaze over the screen of my laptop. I've written to say sorry, offered to pay for dry cleaning, sent a pot plant, an orchid, a beautiful pink one in full bloom. There's been nothing back, but then, for once, I can hardly blame the woman. Also, in between being kind, I think Al might be deep down furious with me. I confess hollowly. And of course he's right to be so, Al's always right. But honestly, Tam, I really don't remember how it happened. Except that I was trying to say something to the girls and she sort of yanked them back and I stepped forwards and splat. Chaos. But there you go. It cannot be undone and I've done my best to atone. I sit up, sliding my hands off my face, endeavouring to blink the spreadsheet in front of me into focus. The best figures in the 15 years since I founded the little event management company of which Tam is now co-partner, and I feel nothing. Tamsin blows out her cheeks, her soft, wide face creased with gentle concern. Well done for saying sorry in the pot plant. Nothing says it like flowers. She pulls a goofy face. I want to tell her that it's too soon for being funny, but know this would be ungrateful as well as heaping wrong on wrong. I nod instead, aware of the worsening grittiness under my eyelids from another bad night, and the drip sense of having been cut loose from whatever invisible tether was responsible for keeping me on solid ground. It was something to do with the way she pulled the girls out of reach, like I was infected, I burst out, needing for my own sake to go over it again. Outside the church, when we arrived, she did it then too. I scroll up and down through the spreadsheet, not seeing it. To lose a parent, I know how that feels, Tam. I know some things to say that might help. I'm an aunt, for God's sake, despite being treated like a pariah all these years. I hurtle on, forgetting my private vow to avoid this territory altogether, never letting me in, not even right at the very end, when Rob was so close to... For all my admonitions to Oliver about the right language for death, I find that I cannot, in this moment, make my mouth pronounce the word. But no one knew when the exact end was coming, did they? Tam offers carefully. And you had visited, a lovely visit, you said, when he was full of hope about those new trials, not that long before. And I'm sorry, darling, but at least Joanne was there when it happened. At least he wasn't alone. Yep, at least there's that. I've been forgetting to breathe again, I realise, flooding my lungs with air and releasing it slowly. I'm glad too that he wasn't alone. But you can't deny what a gatekeeper she was, Tam. How she screamed his entire life over milking the bloody pandemic. I know that it has always felt that way to you, dearest Cath. She eyes me carefully, patiently, like Al. She's heard it all before. But even more than Al, she remains the consummate diplomat, incapable of saying anything horrible to or about anyone. A quality that accounts not only for her friendship with me, but also, by her own admission, for the crap she has taken in relationships over the years, letting herself get trampled on and not making a fuss until her self-esteem is in shreds. For similar reasons, Tam has the perfect touch when it comes to dealing with the many close-to-meltdown clients who call on our services. Milestone events with big price tags, the stakes are always high. Birthdays and anniversaries tend to be more plain sailing, but the planning for weddings and memorials often requires her patient expertise, soothing and cajoling, where I would crash in with both feet. I don't think a Joanne conversation would be helpful to you right now, sweetie, she says tactfully. She got her hooks into your brother a long time ago. End of. Whether he truly loved her for it, we shall never know. She certainly made him and the girls her entire life, and now she's somehow got to regroup. It will be hard for her too, that's the one thing you can be sure of. I know, I wail, and I do not wish her ill, Tam, how could I? I blink at her, managing a rueful smile. And as for Oliver showing up, can we not waste our breath on him? Tea? I get up to fill the kettle, stepping across both dogs, who have a knack of lying exactly in whatever path I need to tread, preferring to be tripped over rather than ignored, which I sort of understand, even though it drives me nuts. No, thanks, I better make tracks. Okay. I put the kettle on its stand and turn it on anyway. Thanks for your amazingness, Tam. I pluck a damp tissue from my jeans pocket and bury my nose in it. You are mad with grief, Tamsin says solemnly. But it will get better, Cath. Somehow it will. Yep, of course it will. I ball the tissue in my palm and post it into the bin, riding a sudden glorious wave of feeling almost normal again. The zigzags, being okay and then not, coming and going of their own accord, are in themselves draining. I think I might write again to Joanne, beg even harder for her forgiveness, or just call round. What do you think? Tamsin looks up from her screen, where she's closing down tabs. What I think, sweetheart, is that you must do whatever feels right for you. Though, maybe just leave Joanne alone for a little while, let time perform its magic. Yes, good thinking, Batman. The kettle has boiled, but Tam is clearly going, and I can't face the bother of tea without her. Hey, why not stay for a quick proper drink? It's gone 5 o'clock after all. Sorry, but Jules is arriving soon. She throws me a sheepish smile, like she's guilty about her new happiness. So I cross the room to give her a hug, because she shouldn't be. Good luck with our Kent Bridezilla on Saturday, I tease, wanting her to know that underneath everything, I'm still alive and functioning. If she calls with more changes, just say a big fat no, despite any histrionics. I release her and open the fridge to pull out a beer for myself. The September Kent nightmare shall remain totally under control, she promises merrily, sliding her laptop into her rucksack and reaching for her bike helmet. Though I'm not sure she's back speaking to her mother yet. Or from falling out over table decorations, geez. I swig the beer, which tastes fantastic. But nothing can touch the great vegetarian canapes war of 2018, can it? Do you remember the endless tastings and the actual food fight? Indelibly etched on my heart. I laugh at the same time as trying to take another swig of beer, choking a little, hysteria beckoning, as the bubbles fizz up the back of my nose. And on our bank balance, Tam quips, pulling her crossed eyes face and bending down to tighten the laces of what looked like new cycling shoes, electric blue with yellow laces. Since Jules, she's been on a fresh fitness drive, dusting off the serious bicycle bought when she moved into her father's Ringwood bungalow instead of selling it 8 years before. Though the fitness plans had quickly fizzled out, the move had ensured the blossoming of our little business and our friendship, to the point where newcomers on either front haven't had a look in. Love suits you, Tam. I grin at her as she straightens, thinking of all the stop-starts until Jules, 6 months ago, offering a lift when Tam's car had broken down. And blinking back tears as she crosses the room to give me and my beer bottle a bear hug. Have you thought about talking to anyone, sweetie? Grief counselling, it might help. I've got Al, and he's given me a great grief book, all about the stages: angry, denying, sad, acceptance. Inside, I can feel one of the tsunamis coming, a heat stirring deep in my bones and behind my eyes. But Tam has been stalwart enough, and it must be fended off. Al really gets it. He loved Rob too, remember, from back in the days when we all actually spent proper time together, when Joanne was winning us round instead of pushing us away. I plug the beer bottle into my mouth, giving my lips something to do other than repeat old complaints and tremble. And anyway, I swallow a mouthful of beer and the lump in my throat. The waiting lists for referrals are still miles long from all the people with legitimate reasons to fall apart. Grief is legitimate, Cath? On the doorstep, she fiddles with the zip of her rucksack, then with the chin strap on her helmet. Jules is planning a small birthday lunch for me when she's over in October. It's the last Sunday of the month. We'd love you and Al to come. Bring the dogs and we can do a nice post-prandial walk. She's dying to meet you, and before you said, I know I've been keeping her to myself. It's from not wanting to jinx things, okay? But it's high time. Super. I'm gripping the bottle so hard it is in danger of shooting out of my hand. We'll be there. My throat is on fire. My voice sounds wrong, tight, not mine. But I'm on the brink now and losing the fight not to show it. You take care, she cries at last, scootering to check the road is clear before settling herself properly into the saddle and pedalling off. You too, I shriek, because it is only with violence that I can get the words out. I stumble back into the house, along the hall, and fall onto the sofa, clutching my beer as my chest heaves. The dogs arrive on either side, puzzled, alarmed, trying to burrow their muzzles under my arms, but I am the animal, howling, with nothing left to give them or anyone. Chapter 4. Oliver. Oliver swallowed several times to counter the familiar tightening in his ears as the plane climbed steeply. Through his window, the grey sprawl of Frankfurt quickly receded to a blur, taking the triumphs and tensions of his most recent meetings with it. Lately, he'd sometimes caught himself wondering why being successful, eventually, had to involve getting bigger. He was great at multitasking, thrived on it, but now there were occasional days when he felt stretched so taut, it was like he was one snap away from... what? Oliver didn't know, and had been doing his best to ignore such moments, focusing on his manifold blessings instead, like having his darling wife and daughter. Their tight, loving unit of a family felt more of a miracle with each passing day, for being so exactly what he dreamed of within hours of meeting Faith, a few weeks after arriving in New York as a rookie corporate banker 14 years before. Dazzled by her beauty and sweet nature and the speed with which he was introduced to and embraced by her huge, warm, functioning family, Oliver knew at once that he'd found the treasure he sought, the treasure he'd never known. The new European expansion program of his venture capital fund was another cause for gratitude, despite the additional work it was bringing. Founded with a techie, hand-picked crew from his Harvard days, Oliver was happy to be the arts grad of the group, leading on travel because he was good with people and because, thankfully, personal interfacing still formed the bedrock of each deal. Faith, understandably, wasn't crazy about the role, and he couldn't blame her. On this trip, what with the funeral